The Limitless podcast with Amita Shukla.
Hello everyone and welcome to my podcast. Today we'll be talking about the 5 signs of a highly sensitive person. So, what do I mean by a highly sensitive person? This is when an individual experiences acute physical, mental or emotional responses to stimuli. The individual has a heightened or deeper central nervous system to sensitivity, which means that the body is able to recognise and pick up more, I suppose, unconscious processes than the majority of individuals. A highly sensitive person at this time, as we know, is made up of around 20% of the general population. So if any of this does apply to you, or you're noticing throughout our session today that some of the things I may be saying may be resonating with you, or you may be identifying with some parts of it, I really want you to know that you're not alone. Sometimes it can require people to need space, to need time on their own, to rejuvenate, to re-energize, and as a way of helping them to ground themselves. So at times when you may be feeling overwhelmed or exhausted through being in social situations, the distance and the space can act as a way of really getting back in touch with yourself. So here are a few signs that I would like to share. There are more. Everyone is unique and everyone's experiences are unique. So as I'm talking about this, really listen to yourself, listen to your body, listen to your mind, and see what resonates with you. And really trust yourself in doing that. So let's start with point number 1. This is when people may often say to you that you're too sensitive. I'm sure many of you listening now have probably smiled or nodded right now, thinking, yes, people have said this to me a lot. And I'm not sure I really believe in being too sensitive. I really don't think that anyone out there can be too sensitive, because your reactions, your emotional responses are all real, regardless of what they may be or how you may respond, where others may not find overwhelming or may find it easier to deal with their emotions. I really want you to know that your emotions are valid, they're important, and you're allowed to have the response that you have. I mean, sensitivity can be such a strength. I know it can feel overwhelming at times, but there is an insight, empathic response that you experience that many others don't. So it's really not a flaw, but a gift that needs to be embraced. So if people around you have said or are saying that you are too sensitive, I really want you to know that sensitivity is a strength. Point number 2. You tend to avoid violent movies or TV shows. And this can be because it can produce a feeling that is quite intense and leave you feeling quite unsettled, because you, the way I like to see it is it can be like you are a sponge where you absorb and can really feel what the other person, whether it's in a violent movie or the news, may be experiencing. So whether that's a sadness or a sense of confusion that emerges, you can really pick up and really put yourself in the other person's shoes. And that relates to point number 1, where you are a highly sensitive person, and you are empathic, and your body is responding and identifying emotions to a much deeper level that perhaps the average person isn't able to. So this can be one of the signs as well. Point number 3, you can be overwhelmed easily by stimuli. So that can be noise, light, strong smells. So they can really leave you feeling, again, quite unsettled. The mind can sometimes feel a little bit chaotic, or you can feel a little bit distressed by the amount of information that you're, again, absorbing. And so it's really worth remembering that, and getting in touch with yourself, that if you notice slight shifts within the way that you are, or whether your internal sense of self appears to be shifting, whether that's the noise around you may have increased, there may be stronger smells, there may be lights, there may be people. So it's really important that you try to maintain and retain your sense of self and stay as much in your body as you can. I know it can be hard, especially when all these external influences can be overwhelming you. But the more you learn about yourself, the more you will learn about when things are shifting and what you may need to do as a result of that to take care and to really protect yourself if you are a highly sensitive person. Point number 4, you may feel things deeply. So you may be a deep thinker, you may have a rich or complex inner life, and you can really process on a much deeper level than the majority of people. So you can be highly attuned to picking up other people's unconscious emotions that they may not even recognize are there, but you can process on a much deeper level where you're able to pick up and really resonate and see emotions and feelings and thoughts that may be there. So you're highly intuitive, and it can be really tricky in identifying what emotions may be yours and what emotions may be somebody else's that you're picking up. So this is one other aspect of being a highly sensitive person. And the 5th and final sign is needing space. You may need to withdraw, have alone time, and get relief and re-energize, and really get back in touch with your energy. You may be picking up other people's emotions that they may not be owning themselves. And so for you to really untangle what is yours and what perhaps isn't yours, you may need to just remove yourself from a situation as a way of gaining clarity before you get out back into the world. So I think it's really important to give a bit more of a visual example here, because going through points I know sometimes can be, again, quite tricky to know, right, is this me? Is this not me? So I want you to imagine being at a party. Let's say you're the first one there. It's quiet. Your energy is still. You feel like you're in touch with yourself. As the hours pass by, the party gets bigger. It gets noisier. The music is loud. You notice more people around you, laughing, talking. And you may notice that your energy starts to feel depleted. You may feel a sense of overwhelm. You may start to feel exhausted. You may not feel like you have the clarity that you had when you first got to the party. And you slowly start to notice that shift. The shift within your body, the shift within your emotions, the shift within your thought processes. And it may feel so overwhelming that you either withdraw or you feel the need to perhaps even run away. So I really hope this is helping and really resonating with what I'm saying. And this is an example of one of the situations. There are more, and it doesn't necessarily have to be when you're in a social situation with lots of people. It can even happen when you're with one person. So it's really important that you start to look around you and notice when some of these shifts, or when you may be picking up some of these subtleties. And again, really working to get in touch with yourself. So I think it's important here to recognise that being a highly sensitive person can bring up challenges and it can bring up great strengths. So let's look at some of those. The challenges that you can face are feelings of overwhelm. There may be times where some of your emotions and some of your responses, some of them may not be controllable, and you may react in certain situations in a way that perhaps you didn't want to. And this can be a very normal challenge for highly sensitive people. Another challenge is that it can bring up high amounts of stress. So if you're needing to do more in one day, or if there's lots of demands that are coming your way, a highly sensitive person can get a bit more stressed out or feel a little bit more anxiety than perhaps the average person. And this is where the need to manage day-to-day activities for highly sensitive people is really important. And though there are some of these challenges that highly sensitive people face, if you learn how to manage them, if you learn yourself and how to get in touch with yourself, it really can be controlled. And you can really utilise it as your strength. So some of the strengths are that you're highly intuitive, you're empathic, and you understand the needs of others and are able to really put yourself in another person's shoes. There's a depth of processing, especially of emotional responses, than most people. So you're able to really connect. You can build relationships with people on a much deeper level, where there's a sense of real quality and depth to the relationship. You have a sensitivity to subtleties, ones that normally people miss due to your highly active nervous system. And the highly active nervous system can be a trait that you are either born with, or usually the majority of the time is due to your early childhood environment. So here are some tips that I would like to share with you as a way of helping to manage being a highly sensitive person. Number one is to avoid stressors. So that's either people or environments where you notice bring a high level of stress or anxiety to you. Number two, I want you to know that it's okay to say no. When there are overwhelming demands, you are allowed to say no as a way of protecting yourself. And point number 3, it's okay to create a safe space. You're allowed to make the space and the time for yourself to re-energize. And actually that's probably one of the most important things you can do, is to create that safe space for you. There is a book that I would like to recommend if you are wanting to learn more about being a highly sensitive person. And this provides a much greater and deeper insight into some of the signs and some of the ways of dealing with being a sensitive person. So if that is something you're wanting to do, I recommend a book by Dr. Elaine Aron. It's called The Highly Sensitive Person. Or if you want to visit her website, there is an online self-test that you're able to take. It's a brief questionnaire. And even though no psychological test or questionnaire is factual and your life cannot be based on this, but it can give you a bit more clarity into whether you may be a highly sensitive person. I would highly recommend taking this test. So her website is hsperson.com. There'll be a bit more on there for you to read as well if you are interested in learning more. So this is my brief description about being a highly sensitive person. And I would like to leave you with a few words, and that's to use your gift of sensitivity as your strength, whether this is to help yourself or other people around you. For more information about me, visit my website, amitashuklatherapy.com, or follow me on Instagram at amitashuklatherapy. I'm Amita Shukla. The mind is limitless, and so are you.
The Limitless podcast with Amita Shukla.